order to define this valuation method, we must first define book value and the price-to-book ratio. What is book value? The difference between assets and liabilities with due depreciation as postulated within the company's books. This value is instituted in an ostensibly ubiquitous quantitative ratio essential to subsequent valuation, i.e. the price-to-book, or PB. We may ascertain this ratio by the quotient of ROE minus G, return on equity minus growth, and COE minus G, the cost of equity minus growth. The price-to-book, or PB, is then multiplied by the security's trading price to determine the book value per share, or BVS. The following example illustrates this. What is the price-to-book ratio? ROE times 1 minus PR, where ROE is return on, sorry, that's an error, that should say equity, and PR is the dividend payout ratio. This calculates the effective sustainable growth rate. The quotient of the difference between the return on equity and sustainable growth rate and difference between the dividend payout ratio and sustainable growth rate constitutes a subjective ratio for the security in question. ROE minus SGR divided by PR minus SGR, where ROE is return on equity, PR is the dividend payout ratio, and SGR is the sustainable growth rate. Below is a hypothetical scenario provided to further elucidate the proceeding. You may find it a bit convoluted and technical. Again, here ROE is defined as net income divided by the book value of shareholder equity. Finally, what is book value growth plus dividend valuation? First, we must deduce the approximate delineation ROE annually for 10 years or 5 years and subsequently calculate the mean or average. This is known as the ROE growth rate. Secondly, adjust the 10-year mean ROE growth in accordance with the 10-year treasury yield, share buybacks, and annual dividend. Thirdly, determine the product of the current share price and 5 to 10-year compounded growth rate. The formula for this is specified below. The quotient of ROE plus share buybacks plus the annual dividend minus the 10-year federal note rate to the 10th power, and the average cost of equity to the 10th power multiplied by the current book value. This is the warranted ratio as determined by the preceding process, and this is the book value of the company. So you're simply ascertaining a quantitative ratio and then multiplying it. You're ascertaining the warranted ratio for book value and then multiplying it by the book value of the company. And this warranted ratio, this justified multiple, is defined in the previous slide and is based upon the company's return on equity, growth rate, and cost of equity. Share buybacks may be omitted. Annual dividend may be omitted for simplicity, though the 10-year federal note is imperative as a standard discount rate. You could potentially supplant the 10-year federal note with a AAA corporate bond rate. Again, it depends on your preference. It also largely varies by company. Not all companies confer annual dividend. Not all companies pursue share buybacks. So it varies greatly by company.